You're tuned in to the Daily BS.
Do you believe it?
Sports and culture combined into one.
Michael on the drive across the lane. Turnaround shot. Got it. 63 for Jordan.
Are you kidding me? He did what?
The Daily BS begins
Bazinga!
right now.
Right. Googly moogly.
Hadouken!
Hey, this promises to be fun.
Can't wait.
Well, good afternoon, folks. Brian Snow is here and with you, and we're ready to get down to some daily BS business, sports and culture combined into one. You can hear a replay of this show 1 hour after its completion, and the premiere of the Daily BS podcast will also be available 1 hour after this show's completion. We are on all kinds of networks and stations all across the country. Well, let me use my normal phrase, in the region, across the nation, and around the world. So if you're in your car on the drive home and you got me via your phone, via your laptop, via whatever, welcome to the Daily BS, and let old Brian take you home with some great sports and culture talk. All right, enough introductions. Let's get started. Okay, folks, I know you have heard the phrase of sick and tired of being sick and tired. When it comes to LeBron James, I'm beyond sick and tired of being sick and tired. I'm tired of these frivolous stats that are being thrown at me. I'm tired of these frivolous world championship records that are being thrown at me. And I'm definitely tired of people using his pass-first mentality to make up for the fact that he doesn't have a doggone killer instinct. I better get some help on this one. Cole Johnson from Cole Sports now joins me. Aren't you tired of being sick and tired when it comes to this?
Yeah, I am. And as you know, because of it, I created a whole segment on my show to where I did not want to talk about LeBron James every single day or every single episode of anything Cole Sports, because I was like, okay, this is getting sick. This is getting ridiculous. So I'm just going to shorten anything LeBron James to like 10 to 15 minute segment a week, and just go from there. Because it's getting ridiculous. This is getting ridiculous.
You know what someone threw at me, and this may require an email response from you. Not only did they throw all of the frivolous responses, and you've seen them all post on my timeline because they do the same thing on your timeline. They threw 2016 at me with the sentence that LeBron James made the greatest comeback in NBA World Championship history.
Sorry, I had to get comfortable in this one because. All right, but before I continue, I gotta add this log onto this fire.
Okay.
So I woke up one day, and one of the very first things I saw.
Oh no!
In regards to the 2016 NBA Finals / World Championship Series, was the following.
Oh no!
Quote. LeBron's chase down block was the greatest defensive play in NBA history. Close quote.
What?
LeBron James' chase down block was the greatest defensive play in NBA history. Yes, I saw this. Yeah. Now, we both could come up with huge defensive plays without even trying, like the Michael Jordan steal of Karl Malone in the Game 6, 1998 NBA Finals. I can think of the John Stark shot being blocked by Hakeem Olajuwon by a fingernail at the end of Game 6 of 1994's NBA Finals. I'm doing that just without trying.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking those two are far better.
How about Gerald Henderson's pickoff of James Worthy in 1984 in the Boston Garden? How about
Game 2? And if that didn't happen, the Lakers would have run away this series, possibly in a sweep.
Yep.
Yeah.
You don't have Gerald Henderson. You don't have a 7-game series, which is the greatest finals ever played, and CBS had it at the time. And we'll touch that subject a little bit later in this conversation. Michael Jordan's steal in 1998, as you proudly mentioned. Any defense Kareem Abdul-Jabbar played against Robert Parrish, be it 1984, 1985, or 1987. How about that? How about Akeem Olajuwon, as you mentioned? John Starks' game-winning 3 blocked by a fingernail.
Yep.
Okay. How about Moses Malone shutting down Kareem in 1983?
Yeoman's work there. Yes.
Giving Julius Erving a chance to clinch Game 4, which was a sweep, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, with the most basic thing that LeBron hasn't had for 17 years. We call it a jump shot.
And, how about that steal, Game 5, 1987 Eastern Conference Finals, when Isaiah Thomas is inbounding the ball. Bird steals it.
Larry Legend.
He throws it to Dennis Johnson for a layup.
108-107 was that final. And that to me is one of the top 5 greatest defensive plays in the NBA playoffs.
Yes, easily.
Okay.
Yes,
top 5 easy. Because if Detroit wins Game 5, they win Game 6 and clinch that series.
They win Game 6. Yes, sir. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. So, all of this, and to have a Bronzexual hit me with
that,
the chase down block. I saw, and I mean, I don't mean I saw on TV. I mean, I was in the Summit. I saw Hakeem Olajuwon run down a Rod Strickland layup.
Yep.
And sent it into the 5th row. I saw a chase down block artist long before LeBron James did it well.
I saw Michael Jordan chase down Patrick Ewing and strip him. I saw Michael Jordan in the old Chicago Stadium chase down John Starks after Starks stripped him. I saw Michael Jordan chase down Joe Dumars.
Oh, and let me think of another Olajuwon chase down. Kevin Johnson. And look, I love KJ. Point guard, Suns extraordinaire in the 90s. He's one of the baddest point guards that you'll ever see.
It should be a Hall of Famer, in my opinion.
Yep.
It should be a Hall of Famer.
He definitely should be. Mayor of Sacramento. More power to you, brother. That dude was on his way to a dunk, and Olajuwon was like, no, sir. So you mean to tell me that LeBron's chased out block of Andre Iguodala? Now, I'm not selling the play short.
No.
But you mean to tell me that is the best defensive play in the 73-year history of the NBA? Get out of here. Please.
And not to mention
this
Iguodala.
Is the audacity of the Bronzexuals.
Listen, the audacity of these Bronzexuals saying that LeBron gave his all in 2018 playing with a broken hand. How about Andre Iguodala giving his all for 7 games in 2016 playing with a bad back?
Mm-hmm.
And he still played all 7 and had a significant contribution in all 7, especially when the Warriors got royally screwed after Game 4, forcing Iguodala into a starting role in Games 5 through 7. Don't start with me.
So when I hear the greatest comeback in NBA history, when I hear that, I'm like, you can take that and completely leave, because in my opinion, and even though this wasn't in the finals, this is what I fully believe: the greatest comeback I ever saw in NBA history. And yes, this is my team, mind you. 1995 Houston Rockets. They were down 3-1
to the Phoenix Suns.
To the Suns. They had to face 2 road games similar to the Cavs.
Mm-hmm.
They had to face 2 road games. And
in Phoenix, and it was the toughest.
Yeah,
it was one of the toughest places. America West Arena in its infancy was one of the toughest places to play in the NBA, not just the Western Conference.
It was. And unlike the beneficial suspension that the Cavaliers got for Game 5.
Oh, that stimulus package.
The Suns were fully manned.
They were fully
There
loaded.
was no injury.
Nope.
There was no suspensions.
Mm-mm.
And
no suspension because of dry snitching either. Can we just throw that in there too?
Yes. And the Rockets, if I'm not mistaken, I think they became the first team in NBA history to come back from 3-1 on the road to win the series in the playoffs.
Yep.
So you mean to tell me, and I think it was only then the fourth that ever happened, period.
Yes.
So you mean to tell me that this comeback was the greatest? I'm like, no, no, yeah, coming back from 3-1, yeah, yeoman's feat, no question about that.
Absolutely.
But greatest? No,
not even close.
I've seen better, and
you and I both have seen better. Good grief, you and I have both seen better. Are you kidding me? You and I have both seen better.
I mean, the first, taking my own team out of it, I can't remember the year. I want to say it was 2002 or 3. First round series when they went to 7 games. The Detroit Pistons. They came back from 3. They had 2003. Thank you. They came back from a 3-1 deficit in the first round against the Magic.
And that was the first team to wipe out a 3-1 deficit in the first round since the playoffs were expanded to 7 games.
Exactly.
The first round was expanded to 7 games. I beg your pardon. And they want to say that's the greatest? Who the hell told this lie?
Right. And then later on in that decade, I will throw my own team under the bus. The Rockets had a 3-1 or 2-0 series lead against the Mavericks in the first round.
And they blew it.
They went home.
And they blew it.
I mean...
Oh, not to mention the fact these same Warriors of 2016 who everyone wants to throw under the bus. By the way, don't y'all remember that they had to wipe out a 3-1 deficit of their own against Oklahoma City?
Yes. They had to wipe one out of their own. Mm-hmm.
They had to wipe out a 3-1 deficit of their own. And no one wants to give the Warriors the credit they deserve because they lost the World Championship Series. I will contend this until the day I die. The Warriors got screwed royally. The Warriors, let's just go ahead and put it out there, and I'm going to continue to put it out there, and it's gaining a little bit of traction because people actually are starting to, do their research and actually believe what I'm telling them. The Warriors got screwed, royally screwed.
You can raise a point about the fact that the NBA wanted to have a narrative of LeBron being the hometown boy, going back home and doing good, and bring a championship to an area that hasn't had a professional one in 51 and a half years. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can raise an argument for that.
Yep.
I try not to, but I can see it. And I don't dismiss it.
Understood.
And the reason why I say I try not to is because I don't want to think the NBA is that much of a puppeteer. However, I could see how that could be the case. I can, unfortunately.
Yeah, I was gonna say 2 words. Too late. You know it. I know it. All of us old schoolers know it.
I mean,
and what's bad, they're still trying to this day. To make themselves not seem like a puppeteer. A little too late for that.
Mm-hmm. I just don't get. Seriously, I just don't get the fascination. And it's not even the fascination of lauding a player.
Mm-hmm.
We all have our favorites.
Yeah.
I don't mind that. Fine, laud your player. I just don't get the fascination of saying this player is great at the total expense of another. I just don't get the rationale, the reasoning, and the heart to do it. I'm like, what does it benefit you to say LeBron is great, or is the greatest of all time because, well, he did things that the guy who wore number 23 before Jordan didn't do? And yes, I know there's some things that Jordan has not done that LeBron has, but the opposite is totally true.
Mm-hmm.
And it's more exponentially so. LeBron did things that LeBron never will do. It's more true than the opposite.
Yep.
So it has to get to a point where people have to say, okay, well, Jordan is awesome, and LeBron is awesome in his own way.
Mm-hmm.
But they're just two different players, period. I just don't get how people have this rationale of, yeah, let's trash Jordan. I don't get it.
Because since LeBron's been in the league, that's all they've done is trash Jordan.
Getting
since
one
LeBron has been in the league,
in NBA career, that has been the case. It's been like, oh well, he already is the best thing. Forget since Jordan, he's better than Jordan. And I'm like, well, okay, fine. So he got into the league 3 years before Jordan did. I'm happy for him.
Mm-hmm.
But fine. I mean, heck, that helped him get past Jordan in the all-time career scoring mark. The fact that he had a 3-year head start on Jordan.
Yep.
I mean, because I know that's one of the things that people say to me. Well, he scored more points than Jordan. Yeah, more power to him. But
they throw that at
Jordan
me as well.
Jordan scored more points in less time than LeBron did.
Thank you.
Explain that. Explain that.
And you
Jordan
know they
did
can't.
that 13 years to 16 for LeBron. Explain that to me. So I don't get that.
I've always made the contention, and I've always made the statement, which is factual, that Michael Jordan did more in 13 years than LeBron has done in almost 17 years. I don't have to say if you only knew the pushback I get. You've seen the pushback I get.
Well, I mean, it's true.
You've seen the pushback I get for making that statement, and it usually begins, and you've heard it also, with a sentence that starts with, quote, "Oh, how can you say that about LeBron?" Close quote.
Is it because we have seen more than, not even just Jordan, we've seen more fair share of players who played this game better than he has?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look, this is neither one of our first rodeos in watching an NBA game or NBA season. I mean, for both of us, we're going to our 5th decade of watching NBA basketball.
Yep.
So if that's the case, wouldn't it stand to reason that we would not, in a capsule, just simply say, well, the NBA only existed for 17, heck, I'll even give you 20 years? The mentality just blows my mind. It really does. It just blows my mind.
Here's something that I got in a private message, and I sent you the picture with LeBron standing tall, or short if you're thinking the way we are, with a quote-unquote scrub lineup. And the quote was, and I'll borrow from you, my dear friend, quote, "LeBron took this team to the NBA Finals. Keep telling me he's not better than MJ." Close quote. Actually, playoffs, not finals. Playoffs.
No,
Playoffs. Okay.
Yes.
I reached out to said person and I said MJ is better than LeBron because when MJ had a trash lineup, he got a 50-win season and went further than LeBron did with that trash lineup. The year was 1988. The first time they faced, I don't know, the Detroit Pistons in a playoff series. And this is before they made the trade for Cartwright.
Right.
This is a team that was finding its up. This is what I say makes MJ better than LeBron. Julius Erving had it. Hakeem Olajuwon had it. Scottie Pippen had it. MJ had it. Patrick Ewing had it. It's called progression.
Yeah.
It's called progression. And LeBron ain't had it.
Right. And far be it from us to want to actually have LeBron go through a progression period. Far be it from us to actually say, okay, show me where you were in one spot, where you are in another spot, and how you grew from point A to point B. How dare we have that expectation of any player, since we've seen the greats actually show us that's what they did. Oh, yes, and to that lineup, that trash lineup for LeBron with the Cavs. That was the 2009 Cavaliers, and
and they got smacked around in the East Finals.
And I know you remember this as vividly as I did. The talk was, we're finally going to get a Kobe versus LeBron finals. Mm-hmm. The Cavs, this is going to be finally their year, and they scraped their chin last year against the Celtics. They got pushed to they pushed the Celtics to the brink in the Eastern Conference semifinals, but they bowed out in 7.
Yep.
And LeBron had a wonderful performance, 45 points there. It offset I think the Truth scored 39 in that game. Mm-hmm. It offset his 39. It just wasn't enough. So this was the progression that we're talking about. I'm like, okay, so we might be seeing that.
Mm-hmm.
So they come out next year, they finish with the best record in the NBA. Cool. I'm good with that. They go to the first 2 rounds like it's nothing.
Right.
Awesome. All right, so I'm expecting greatness to assert itself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then they let an old school type team like the Magic just destroy them.
They got pummeled. They got creamed in that East Final series.
I mean, what was elaborate about the Magic? They basically were like how not a thing. They basically like how my beloved Rockets were set up 15 years prior, inside out.
Yep.
You got a guy who could do work in the post. And you had, in their case, they had 4. The Rockets, it was 3. But you had 4 guys who were spread out from beyond the arc.
Mm-hmm.
This was, to me, that is not complicated. Yet, the Cavaliers simply did not have an answer for them.
Nope.
They were bounced in 6. And the next thing you know, we're starting to see this guy and his armor crack a bit. And so, here's this Brown special that shows you, he took this trash lineup to the playoffs. And, I said this to you. I'll say this on air. I said to you about that, quote, if a Brown special were to say it to you, I'd retort by saying, and remind me how their season finished. Because, yes, that trash lineup that won 66 games didn't even make it to the NBA Finals. Close quote.
That's exactly it.
So why are you going to bring he brought this trash lineup to the playoffs. Okay, fine. It's even more embarrassing than he won 66 with the trash lineup.
What was the end result of that?
Yes, what was the end result? Did we see him hoist the Larry O'Brien trophy? No. Did we even see him compete for it that year? No. So what's the point? Come on, really?
You know what the point? You know what the point is. It's a point we've been talking about for almost 3 years. They don't want to see the truth, and the truth is something I've been saying for as long as I've had my show active. LeBron James is a fantastic athlete.
He's an awesome athlete.
He just ain't that good.
If any of us were to say otherwise, we would not need to have a mic shelter our mouths.
Exactly.
Period.
Okay. I've always said this. since he's come into the league and people still want to label me a hater, fine. But take this statement into consideration, and it's mine and mine alone. People have agreed with it. LeBron James is a fantastic athlete. Okay? He's a fantastic athlete. When it comes to basketball, however, there's an incomplete page right there.
Yeah. It's riddled with 6 championship losses. I mean, how can that be escapable? If, you know something. Here's my take and mine alone.
Let's go.
All right. You know what I've been seeing the older I've gotten? It seems that sports fan has become soft.
Mm-hmm.
Since when do you remember having any of us give a pass to any team or any player that got to the precipice of their season, but they didn't finish the deal? When did we award participation trophies? When did we do this? Please tell me, when did we do this? Because this was not the case.
Nope.
When I was younger and when you were younger, because we're around the same age. Mm-hmm. This was not the case when we were younger.
No, it wasn't.
It was, okay, you got there, now close it off, finish the deal.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, look, I don't tout.
We're old school like that. We're old school. We're old school like that. Okay.
Right. I don't tout. Well, Olajuwon's better than Jordan because Olajuwon went to the finals 5 years before Jordan did.
No.
How ridiculous does that sound? Come on, man.
And look, my first team may have been the Chicago Bulls, but I recognize greatness. And Hakeem Olajuwon was all of that and then some. I loved Hakeem Olajuwon at the University of Houston.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
And
I've loved Olajuwon since the University of Houston. Look, I hate to say this, bronze sexuals, but just hear out a little bit of logic here. Unlike what LeBron has done, Hakeem made his team better.
Yep, he made his team better. Oh, and bronze sexuals, if you want, I don't like to call them scrubs, but if you want a team of non-all-stars that an elite player brought a team to a championship with, I will present you the 1994 Houston Rockets.
Yep.
There you are.
Because
you had
at
a guy
the
who
time,
averaged 27 points. The next guy who averaged any type of points was like 13.
Mm-hmm.
So
because
there
at
you
the
are.
time,
there's your exhibit.
Because at the time, people were wondering who the hell is Sam Cassell, who the hell is Vernon Maxwell, why the hell is Kenny Smith still playing? These were legitimate questions that were asked of me. And Olajuwon took him to 7 games. Had to erase a 3-1 deficit against Phoenix in '94.
No, 2-0.
2-0. Thank you. Thank you. 2-0 deficit to Phoenix.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Beat the daylights out of Utah.
Yeah, they didn't stand a chance at that.
Utah didn't have a chance.
Mm-hmm.
And then they had to go the distance and win the last and face 2 elimination games.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Both of them at home.
Mm-hmm.
And they got the job done.
Yeah. Gosh, that was a good series. Oh, man.
And people want to compare 2016 to something like that. That NBA World Championship Series was legendary. 1994.
It was.
2016 had too many undertones with it. Because
if I'm not mistaken, wasn't every game outside of Game 7
lopsided?
Yeah.
It was lopsided. And everybody who knows me or knows of me knows I make this contention, and you agree with it, that should have been a 5-game conquest. Period.
Well, I mean, considering, like I said to you, if If Draymond Green was supposed to be suspended, it was supposed to be the series before.
Yep.
I will always contend that.
Mm-hmm.
And
I'll stand with you. I stand with you with that.
And my thought was, if you didn't suspend him in the Western Conference Finals, and it was more egregious with that one, with the kick to Steven Adams in the groin, that was egregious.
Yes, it was.
If you didn't suspend him for that, then you had no reason to suspend him for Game 5 of
the World Championship
Series, because in the game prior, the end of that game prior, Green gets into basically nothing more than just a trash talking contest with LeBron James.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, folks,
for a game because he was talking trash to LeBron James.
By the way, folks, Game 4, the Warriors wiped him out. They wiped him out.
Mm-hmm. So I mean, when people say that was a legendary finals, I'm like, okay, fine. It went 7 games. It's awesome, and it was a great 7th game.
Mm-hmm.
But I will definitely take 1994 easily, because no game in that series, if I'm not mistaken, the margin of victory was no higher than 8 points. I think
no higher than 8
in any of those games.
No higher than 8
in any of those games. No higher than 8. It was evenly matched, closely contested, all 7 games.
And
I will take that one.
And that's how a World Championship Series. And that's how a World Championship Series is supposed to be, evenly contested. 1994. I'll bring up 1984. The Lakers actually, in terms of points average, outscored the Celtics by a very slim margin. A very slim margin. And were it not for 2 overtime periods and a key steal, Brownomaniacs, listen carefully, were it not for 2 overtime games and a key steal that led one of those games to go to overtime, it's a 4-game Lakers sweep.
Yeah, it would have been.
But I'll take that 7-game series in a heartbeat.
In a heartbeat? You kidding me? Heck yeah, I'll take that.
I'll take that 7-game series, and it makes you now, without us having the NBA for the present time, it makes you appreciate those old games. It makes you really appreciate it.
I actually watched not all the games, but I actually watched a documentary of the 1984 NBA Finals. Well, they actually called it World Championship Series.
Yes.
I actually saw, the highlights of all 7 games, and it just took me back, and I was like, wow, man, I wish the NBA was played like this again.
Me too.
I wish it was played like that.
On 2 separate planes, how much do you miss Kevin McHale?
A lot. Are you kidding me? A lot. I mean, people want to throw such huge shade at Kevin McHale because people say, well, you got Chris Webber, you got Kevin Garnett, you got Charles Barkley, you got Karl Malone. And I will always say to people, for the exception of Tim Duncan, my favorite my favorite power forward of all time, Kevin McHale. Why? Have you seen that dude?
Mm-hmm.
The fundamentals this guy has is off the freaking charts. I mean,
that step back jumper on the baseline, his foul line jumper, his post moves. Hey, Bron Sexuals, listen carefully. You know what LeBron needs but will never get in his 17th year? Something Kevin McHale had for the 15 years he was in the NBA. A post game.
Man.
One of the most intricate, complicated, not easily solved, but basic post games you will ever see. I adored watching Kevin McHale work. Even against my teams, Kevin McHale took you to school. Okay?
Even against mine. Do you think that as then 13-year-old, I wanted to see Kevin McHale cook my Rockets in the 1986 World Championship Series? No. But do you know how I appreciated it? Because I got a chance to see greatness in front of me.
Yep.
and he is one of the three biggest reasons why I say the 1986 Celtics is the single season best team I've ever watched in NBA history.
And they played the most beautiful game of basketball.
Yes. And I will give you three words that typifies Kevin McHale to me: up and under.
Mm-hmm. The master of the up and under. He was the
master of the up and under. So, you know, when people give me all the, you don't even have to take my word for it. When Charles Barkley was asked, who was the toughest guy who you played against?
Kevin McHale.
And he said, I don't even have to hesitate. Kevin McHale was the toughest player I played against. I don't even have to hesitate.
And I loved watching I loved watching Charles. I loved watching McHale, Ralph Sampson, Charles Oakley, one of my hometown favorite power forwards, Charles Oakley, who played with the Bulls for many years. I mean, I mean, it's not even close. Do you know if Kevin McHale and LeBron James had a battle in the post, LeBron James would be battered, bruised, bloodied, and blown out?
And that's before McHale draws contact with him. McHale didn't even have to be physical with LeBron, and he would embarrass the guy.
He would embarrass him. McHale would embarrass him. I'll give you another forward that would embarrass. I'll give you another forward who was so defensive-minded that would cook LeBron blindfolded. Does the name Bobby Jones mean anything to you?
Underrated. People talk when people talk about the Sixers. They even mention the coach Billy Cunningham before they mention Bobby Jones. But Andrew Toney and Maurice Cheeks and of course Julius Erving and of course Moses Malone, the guy who really did help them get that championship in 1983.
Yep, took them to the promised land.
But that team needed a Bobby Jones. And all that dude did was he just did the basics, but he did the basics so well.
He did. He did
the basics so well. Unsung hero of that team. Unsung hero of those Sixers teams of the early to mid-'80s.
So a Bronsexual asked me this question from a forward standpoint. Mm-hmm. And I hit him with, he said, and it's like he was defending LeBron. He said, name a forward that can compete with LeBron. I said, today or yesteryear? He goes, any era. I said, all right, I'll give you three of them right now. He said, lay it on me. I'll give you three Hall of Famers: Kevin McHale, James Worthy, Scottie Pippen.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even touch Larry Bird because we all know Larry. I don't have to touch Larry. We ain't got to touch Larry Bird.
Mm-hmm. Don't even have to. But I mean, if you want to mic drop Larry Bird, but still, you might drop that argument. It's Larry Bird. But I mean, yeah. Let's touch on Worthy for a second. People sleep on that guy so hard. They sleep on this guy so hard because they think, well, he was a product of Magic, and you had Kareem on the team too. Do you realize when Magic was the number one focal point of that team, who the leading scorer of that team was?
James Worthy.
Wasn't Magic. It wasn't Kareem. It was Big Game James.
James Worthy.
This guy was a thoroughbred, and you all sleep on him. The whole league looks like him.
Yep.
The whole league today looks like number
James
42
Worthy.
of the Lakers.
Looks like James
because that
Worthy.
is all what Worthy did. He ran up and down the court, and he was so fast for his size. He was so physical for his size to boot, and he was so athletic for his size to boot.
Yep.
And the dude had skills. So,
oh my God, did he ever?
So, I mean, when people want to just simply brush aside James Worthy as being, he's a non-essential part of the puzzle, no, sir.
He was so integral. Listen, Bronsexuals, and I know we've gone on a lot with the Bronsexuals, but y'all got to listen to this. James Worthy has something that LeBron just recently got. James Worthy closed out a Game 7 with a triple-double and did it against the most defensive.
Yep.
And did it against the most defensive-minded team in one of the most defensive-minded teams in NBA history. Of course, I'm talking about the Detroit Pistons.
1988. Yep, I remember that.
1980, Game 7, 1988, at the Forum. Not the Great Western Forum, not the Staples Center, the Fabulous Forum.
The Fabulous Forum. Yeah. And I had a full...
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Yeah. So, okay. So, when I had this conversation with Bronx Sexual, and they said, okay, you compare LeBron James and the people that he played with in the finals, and the list is endless: Durant, Curry, Clay, Duncan, Westbrook, Harden. Name one guy that has been on par with all of these players that Jordan played against in the finals. I was like,
I
Magic.
remember that, Magic Johnson.
I mean, come on.
Let's start with 19.
Top 5 players of all time.
Let's start with 1991. Magic Johnson, James Worthy, Vlade Divac. 1992, Clyde Drexler, Terry Porter, Buck Williams. 1993, Kevin Johnson, Charles Barkley. Danny Ainge.
And a former multi-time champion, Danny Ainge. Yes.
Not to mention one of my favorite long-distance shooters. I believe he goes by the name of Dan Marley.
Dan Marley. Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's go to 1996. What should be a pair of Hall of Famers, but one of them is in Gary Payton, Sean Kemp. Give you another underrated forward he played against. His name was Detlef Schrempf.
Yep.
How about
one of the most underrated 6 men in the history of the game?
Percy Hawkins, one of the best shooters of all time. 1997 and 98, John Stockton, Karl Malone, former Atlanta Hawk Antoine Carr, Greg Ostertag, who gave Jordan fits.
Decent center. Decent defensive center.
Fits. Okay?
Decent defensive center. Yep.
Jeff Hornacek, a former Lions Township graduate from Lyons, Illinois. All right.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh,
I did not know he was. I did not know he was a nearby Chicago native.
He's a Chicago native. He's a Chicago native. Okay. So don't tell us. We don't know what we're talking about, and don't give us the stupidest question you could ever give us. Name one player that Jordan has faced. Man, please. I could tell you. We can tell you players he faced on his way to the World Championship.
That's about to say. We even had to talk about the finals on his way to the finals. The list of
Hall of Famers,
greats and Hall of Famers.
The list of Hall of Famers: Larry Bird, Kevin McHale, Robert Parrish, Dennis Johnson,
Dennis Rodman.
Yep. James Edwards, Mark Aguirre.
Joe Dumars.
From Chicago, by the way, Mark Aguirre played at DePaul University. Right. Another Chicagoan, and this one is for a legendary coach I had a chance to meet before he passed away, is Gene Pingatore. Isaiah Thomas.
Yep.
Played at
St. Joe in the history of the game.
Played at St. Joe's in Westchester, Illinois. Isaiah
West
Thomas.
Chicago's own.
Yep.
West Chicago's own. I mean, and this is also addressed to one of the biggest bronze sexuals in the history of civilization. That would be Undisputed's own Shannon Sharp.
Oh no!
How dare you follow a guy on a team where when you ask or you pose a question similar to that you forget that Jordan played against Magic Johnson? How could you forget this? I mean,
not to mention some of the regular season games alone between Michael Jordan and Magic Johnson. We're talking from 1985 to 1991 were some legendary games.
Those were must-see games. I mean, it boggles my mind. It's like you all are going to just simply sweep so far under the rug Jordan's championship legacy, and I'm like, this guy's championship legacy began by ending 2 in the same spring.
Yep.
So you mean to tell me that you're going to say, well, Jordan's legacy don't mean rip, when he took the two-time defending NBA champions down in a sweep.
Mm-hmm.
In a sweep, I may add. And the very next series take down basically the team of the 80s. I normally group them with the
in a 5-game series.
In a 5-game series?
5-game series. And oh, by the way, here is a note about the 5th and deciding game in the forum that a lot of people don't realize. Michael didn't lead his team in scoring that night. Scottie Pippen did. He had 32.
Yep.
MJ had 30.
Yep. Didn't have to. And the thing that I remember, this is when I actually started to really respect Jordan as a player. The thing that I remember, that fourth quarter, Jordan, he had the ball, but I saw he kept finding Paxson open. He kept finding Paxson open that whole fourth quarter. I was like, oh, look at you, Jordan. Okay. Oh,
listen.
So that's when my eyes opened as to the championship guy that I knew he was going to become. Now I knew he was a great player, and I knew he had the ability to do different things.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, okay, fourth quarter. Normally, this would be the time when a guy like Jordan stature would say, okay, well, give me the ball, get out the way, I'm gonna score all the points. No. Jordan was like, okay, well, they're gonna double me, play off you. All right, John, here you go. And he just kept feeding Paxson. Well, that's what I noticed in Game 5, fourth quarter.
Players like that trust their teammates. And don't give me the argument, and I know you've heard this argument. We've spoken about it on this show. Don't give me the argument, well, Michael was carried. Well, duh, it's a team sport, you dummy.
Sometimes players need to be. I mean, look, I said this in an argument with the same LeBron section that said that LeBron chase down blocks a great defensive player in NBA history. He thinks that I come from the standpoint of, well, Jordan can do nothing wrong, and LeBron can do everything wrong. I'm like, no. My philosophy is the same with LeBron as it is with Jordan. The greater the player, the greater responsibility, the greater the praise, and the greater the criticism.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're going to step up, I'm going to heap the praise upon you, like Jordan did. But if your player doesn't step up, I'm going to criticize you.
Look, Jordan stepped up so ridiculously, not just with his scoring, but with Okay, people are going to hate me for this. The Bronx sectors especially going to hate me for this, but you've heard me say it. How about basketball acumen? How about the fact that Jordan trusted John Paxson? How about the fact that Jordan trusted his teammates in 1992 to help wipe out a 15-point fourth-quarter deficit in a closeout game in Chicago? How about the fact that MJ trusted Pax, who crept behind the three-point line? They gave Michael the ball and said, here, create. Okay, Michael could have driven to the hoop, could have gone to overtime. What's he do? He spots Scottie. Scottie charges down the lane. They collapse. They find Horace. They collapse on him. And who's wide open to take the game, the championship winning shot?
Yes.
I believe this is John Paxson.
Yep. Game 6, 1993 NBA Finals. Yep.
But what people don't understand, MJ started it with his penetration.
Exactly.
And they gave him the ball. Here's something that all the greats, including Jordan, up to the Jordan era, including the Kobe Shaq era. Here's something,
even them.
You can include the Kobe Shaq era and the Warriors era, which is still going, by the way. We'll touch that in a minute. They trust their teammates. They get the ball to their leader and allow the leader to do a simple 3-word phrase, make the decision.
I mean, I just don't get how when you see the evidence of a guy who knows basketball, they still want to down and degrade him.
Yep.
And do it in this way. Well, Jordan didn't take all the game-winning shots. Why would he need to? Why would he want to? And I would always say this: the reason why he didn't have to is because I'll admit it. In the 80s, he did sometimes stupidly take it all on his own.
Yep.
And he had to learn by trial by fire. Well, okay, I can't always take all the shots. I can't play 5-on-1. I know I have that ability to where I think I can defeat a whole team by myself, but maybe I need to use my teammates. And it took him bumping his butt on the ground to the Pistons year after year because that basically was the defense they played against them.
Yep.
They dared him to use his teammates. And then when Jordan actually did, that's when the Pistons were out the door. So
and that's when the Bulls dynasty began.
Jordan learned. So,
LeBron hasn't.
So we're gonna So we're gonna penalize Jordan because he decided to not score decided to not do 37 5-and-5 lines, but decided to do 31 6-and-6. Years later, the championship years, that basically was his line. So we're gonna punish him because he didn't score as many points.
And MJ still has the respect of everyone he's played against because they refer to his smarts as well as his ability.
As they should. I mean, that to me is what made Jordan the player that he was. It wasn't the fact that he was a great offensive weapon. He is one of the greatest offensive weapons in NBA history. No question. It was the fact that dude, you did not know what he was going to do. Penetrate, hit you with a fadeaway, hit a three, or dish. And he could do all of that with absolute amazing dexterity. Skill.
This is what a lot of people don't realize. Jordan was very ambidextrous. He was very ambidextrous. Oh, by the way, LeBron, why don't you have a left-handed dribble?
Oh, that's a good question.
Every time, and I've noticed this in the past 10 years, every time LeBron has gotten stripped, what's happened? It's been taken from his left hand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and so that you know that we know Brown Specials are our game. Yes, the Pistons also tested Jordan's left hand, and it wasn't all that strong either.
Exactly.
But because of that, it got stronger. So miss me with that. Come on, man.
Michael said, I'm going to figure out how to get better and make my teammates better. Matt Guokas had one of the best lines during the NBA on NBC era, 1997, Game 6, June 12th, 1997. After Steve Kerr hit the championship winner, Matt Guokas said, and I quote, "Well, the question was, would Stockton come to double Michael Jordan? Stockton came. Steve Kerr, reminiscent of John Paxson in 93. Close quote.
Yep.
And if you remember the backstage, if you remember behind the scenes, all Michael did to Steve Kerr was look at him. He looked at him for a few seconds, and he didn't even have to complete his thought. He said, if Stockton comes, Kerr looked at him and said, I'll knock it down.
I'll knock it down.
And he knocked it down.
And to add to that story, Jordan set that up.
He sure did.
Because with the penetration earlier, he kept it and he scored. So he knew it was coming.
Mm-hmm.
Jordan knew it was coming.
He did.
And that's the thing. Jordan knew the double was coming. And that was the play he wanted to make. He was like, okay, I want you to double because it will be easier to have a guy who's wide open. Because I could take my guy 1-on-1 as he proved the next year.
Brian Russell
with his own championship winning shot.
Brian Russell. You think Brian Russell don't have nightmares about that shot?
Oh, good Lord, man.
So
he probably still to this day, 22 years later, curses the Jazz deck.
So who do you think we'll close with this question and take it off the Bronze Sexuals for a few minutes and put it where it's supposed to be, the person whom you and I think is the greatest player to ever do it, Michael Jeffrey Jordan. Who had more nightmares, Craig Elo or Brian Russell?
Considering that I think it happened to him a second time, Craig Elo. And I love Craig Elo. He was a former
Yeah.
Rocket, so
Yeah,
I love Elo. I love Elo, and he actually was a really good player. It is so heartbreaking to me that he's become a Jordan footnote. I feel for the man, but he is a Jordan footnote because when you mention Craig Elo, you always think about the shot, Game 5, 88?
May 7th, 1989. I'll
89.
never forget that date. May 7th, 1989 is the day.
1989 first round
and
shot.
I hate to say it about Elo because I've liked Elo and his defensive play. Take a lesson, LeBron. I liked his defensive play, but when you're playing the greatest to ever do it, it's like, this is how I describe that shot. Jordan went up, Elo went up. Elo came down.
No. Jordan stayed up.
And he says, oh, look at this. I got a clean look.
Look.
So when you get that clean of a look, you don't have a choice but to knock it down.
Yeah. So, I mean,
And there was
I would have to say
there was
Elo.
there was Doug Collins jumping around all over the place.
Oh, that was hilarious. I always found that funny. I was like, okay, he's looking. If he could, if the ground could come up and hug him, he would hug the floor. He was looking to trade somebody.
Oh, and one final note: Brian Russell and Craig Elo, they wore the same number.
Oh, they sure did.
They wore
They
the
sure
same
did.
when Jordan victimized them both. They wore the same number.
Well, they sure did. Huh.
And I'd rather have, if I was going to get victimized by the greatest to ever do it, please do it on the stage of the World Championship Series and just put me out of my misery. Please. Because at least in that competition, you're facing the best of the best of the best.
Yeah. And look, I have to add this name. I love him. He gave me a ring. He gave me a ring for my team in 1995, but I still think to this day he has a little bit of a nightmare fetish too. Clyde Drexler. That first half, Game 1, 1992. NBA Finals/World Championship Series. When Jordan just was unconscious.
He lit them up. He lit them up. He lit them up.
I always loved that after the 6th 3-pointer he made in that half, when he just looked to the front court. Looked to the courtside fans, and he just put his two arms up like, "Hey, I can't explain it." And I was looking at that game. I was in North Carolina at the time, actually.
There you
looking
go.
at that game, and I was just in awe. I was like, "Man, this guy is on another planet. Look at him. There's no defense with this guy. None. Zero. and the talk only minutes leading into that game was, who's the best shooting guard? Is it Clyde Drexler?
Is it Clyde Drexler or Michael Jordan? And I love Clyde. I love Clyde.
I love Clyde too. I love Clyde too. Followed him ever since he was
another University Phi Slamma Jamma. Another University of Houston player. I mean, love Clyde. Love Olajuwon. Here's a name for you, Larry Mishaw. There you go.
Yeah.
Michael Young.
Young, Mr. Mean. Yeah,
but it's just when Clyde and MJ went at it on the world stage in the World Championship Series, you just had this feeling that Jordan was going to do something stupid. And I mean that in a very good way.
In a good way.
It was Game 1. It was in Chicago Stadium. You know, Chicago's in its own world because we're back in the World Championship Series. So we're all going nuts.
Okay, I know you all
we're all getting our snacks and ready, and it's like it became a June tradition. It's the month of June, and the Bulls are in the World Championship Series. All right, let's get a snack and let's stay home and see what happens. But didn't you get the feeling?
I could tell you from experience, North Carolina was similar to Chicago.
I know it was. I know it was. It's like, okay, it's a tradition now. Here comes our tradition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But you get the feeling when you watch players like Julius Erving, Michael Jordan, Moses Malone, Clyde Drexler, Hakeem Olajuwon, Robert Parrish, Kevin McHale, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson. When you watch legends, you get the feeling that there's going to be one game that they're going to do something outrageous. I call 35 points and a half with 6 3-point goals a little outrageous.
It's like to borrow an old school hip hop reference in song. It's like what Run DMC said in Peter Piper. Not bad meaning bad, but bad meaning good.
Close this out with another line that you love to use and that you told me about these bronze sexuals. Something about we ended it before they knew what to do with it. Close us out with that, please.
All right. Listen, bronsexuals. Basketball began long before 2003. It began long before this guy from Akron wowed everybody with his athletic prowess. And the things that he has done, it has not surpassed anything we have seen before. Now, there's been some things that he has equaled, but not a lot of them. But there's been many things that others have still surpassed him in doing who played before him. And we name many of those players. I'll even go further back. Jerry West, Elgin Baylor, Bill Russell,
Wes Unseld,
Gus Johnson,
Willis Reed, Jack Sikma,
Earl Monroe, Clyde Frazier,
Gail Goodrich.
Gail Goodrich. And that's before we get to George Gervin and Pete Maravich,
right?
And those likes. And then that's before it gets to our fandom. We got the chance to see Julius Erving in the second half of his career, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in the second half of his, and this 20-year-old wunderkind who simply knew how to play all 5 positions by the name of Irvin Johnson, but we didn't call him Irvin, we called him Magic.
We called him Magic.
And then he got a chance to revive the NBA and make it to be the stalwart league that it is now. The crumbs that still he, the king, eats off of because of those two, with him and Larry Bird. And that's even before the love affair that we've had with Jordan. Began. Not even enjoyed, began. So that is to say to all you guys, you bronsexuals, definitely. You see, when it comes to NBA knowledge, with you fools, Brian and I, we were through with it before you learned what to do with it.
Amen, brother. I love you, and thank you for the time.
I love you too, bro. Thank you, man, for the time. I appreciate it.
You may have noticed I made a couple of changes here, and I have housed everything under Snowman Digital Media. SnowmanInTheMorning.com is still alive, but there are some changes to it. You only hear parts of some interviews that I have now, but if you want to hear the rest, why don't you do me a favor and become a member of the SnowmanInTheMorning.com website. All it'll cost you is $10 per month, and not only will you get some full interviews and some full hilarious interviews, but you'll get proxy to some video that I'm putting together and a few surprises that I won't release to the public just yet. It'll only cost you $10 a month. You go to snowmaninthemorning.com and you click on the button register for this website, or look in the menu that says join the website. I got more for you after this.
You're tuned in to the Daily BS. Sports and culture combined into one.
I have a question, and it's a very serious one. Let's talk some football here during this hour. Dak Prescott. Many believe that he deserves the money that he is seeking. In fact, a very dear friend of mine, Philip Robinson, says he, quote unquote, deserves whatever the market bears. At the very least, he should be in the ballpark of his contemporaries, namely Goff and Wentz, neither of whom may deserve their contracts either, close quote. Very good point. So I responded and I said, so Dak doesn't deserve it? Philip says, quote, he does. It's just his time. The NFL market doesn't guarantee the best gets paid the most. Shifting gears, forget Dak. If I'm the Cowboys, I pay him. But Cooper, I would not have. And I said I'll trust Amari before I trust Dak. Well, it's time to answer the question. Does Dak deserve $30-some-odd million? Hell no. No, and no. Dak wants $40 million per year annually? Why? What in the world has he done to deserve that kind of contract? You're kidding me, right? But he's probably going to get his contract anyway. But I say he doesn't deserve it. And I hate to be as simple as what has he done lately, but yeah. Let's see. 2-time Pro Bowler, all-rookie team, NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year. Why? NFL Rookie of the Year 2016. Why? First team All-SEC 2014, 2015. Now, that's when I liked him. I liked him at Mississippi State. He just hasn't done a doggone thing since he's been with the Cowboys. Career stats. 65% completion percentage, 15,778 yards, 97 touchdowns, 36 interceptions, a 97 passer rating, 1,221 rushing yards, 21 rushing touchdowns. Yeah. And all that means not a doggone thing when it comes to the Dallas Cowboys. And I will explain with basically only one reason. I can put a few in here, but I'll use only one reason why he doesn't deserve the money. The reason I think he doesn't deserve the money is this, and it's pretty simple. Dak Prescott's numbers are inflated. Oh, you didn't know? Oh, you didn't hear me? Let me say it again. Dak Prescott's numbers, as gaudy as they are inflated. Here's what I mean. Most of Dak Prescott's passing yards have come when games have been out of reach. Some of the stats Dak Prescott has put up have come when the game has long since been decided. Give example. Thanksgiving Day, 2019, Dak puts up 380 yards. Unfortunately, the Cowboys got their tails kicked by the Buffalo Bills at home, and the game was long over before Dak Prescott decided to try to rally the Cowboys. That's what I mean. There have been so many games that Dak Prescott has played where he would look good in the first half, and then a turnover will happen. And some of it is by his own doing. He's only thrown 21 interceptions. True. But how many of those have come in key moments? How many of those have come in moments where everyone expected the Cowboys to win? How many of those came in a playoff game? Oops, did I mention that? Yeah, I did. Dak's only won one playoff game, and he's 4 years deep. Now, if the Cowboys were smart, if they want to pay Dak Prescott, they'd also pay an offensive line. They'd also pay a couple of tight ends who can block that are not named Jason Witten. Nothing against you, Jason Witten. He had a great career, but it's time for him to hang it up. Cowboys would go young. They got it right when they paired Prescott with Ezekiel Elliott. They got that right. I'll give you that. It's a great situation. And now they have paid Elliott. They have paid Cooper, but they haven't paid Dak. Hold off on paying him. Franchise him. If I were the Cowboys, this is what I would do. I'd franchise him. A lot of people are not going to like this opinion. This is not going to be the popular opinion, but I don't care. I don't use stats. I use my eyes when I watch him. What I see with my eyes is Prescott would be good at times and horrible at others. Sometimes, listen to me carefully, sometimes his decision-making is skittish. Very, very skittish. If there's one thing that Dak Prescott has yet to solve, it's a blitz. And I mean solve it consistently. You can say the same thing about one Jimmy Garoppolo, but hey, Jimmy Garoppolo had weapons with him. What does Dak Prescott have, save Ezekiel Elliott and Amari Cooper? Does he have anything else to throw to? Anyone else to throw to besides Amari Cooper? If Ezekiel Elliott learned how to catch out of the backfield, then Prescott would be in business. I'll say it again. I love Ezekiel Elliott as a runner, but y'all know one of my favorite running backs of all time is that of Roger Craig. Dak Prescott is average at best. When Ezekiel Elliott was suspended, did he do that well? No. Did he actually do something when he didn't have his main weapons with him? No. I'm sorry, but no. And only one playoff appearance. This is a perpetual 8-8 team, and I'm talking about the Dallas Cowboys. If you want to go from top to bottom and see where the problem is, we all know what the problem is in the front office. But if you really want to see what the problem is on the field, especially with your offense, take a look at the quarterback. Take a look at the quarterback and tell me why he deserves $40 million a year. That may be the going rate. And I also said that Wentz and Goff doesn't deserve their contracts either. And, of course, they got them. Matt Ryan, same thing. Although Matt Ryan does have a Super Bowl appearance under his belt. But I'm sorry. I am sorry. I don't trust Dak Prescott. And if you're a Cowboy fan, you wouldn't either. They'd have done better with Teddy Bridgewater under center. And I know Prescott's a youngin', and he's got a lot more to prove, and I get that. I really do. I'm having a little bit of fun here. But if I were the Cowboys, I'd franchise him. I would franchise him and make him prove it. Make him prove that he's worth the investment of $40 million a year. And the way that you make him prove that he's worth the investment goes beyond the stats. Have him lead your team to another division title. Have him lead your team to an NFC championship game. Have him lead your team to the promised land. Have him lead your team to a Super Bowl victory. They didn't have to franchise Aikman because Jimmy Johnson was in charge and Johnson knew what he can do. Mike McCarthy doesn't know what Dak Prescott can do. Well, let me change that statement. He would know what Prescott can do, but Dak Prescott ain't Aaron Rodgers. And this is me heaping praise on a quarterback that I can't stand in the form of Aaron Rodgers. But numbers are one thing, eyesight is another, and I've seen Aaron Rodgers do some things. I haven't seen Dak Prescott do some things. Slap the franchise tag on him. Make him prove himself. Make him prove himself. And if you really want to go deep, I'll take a piece of advice that my friend Adam Cook said. Make him prove what he's worth without his weapons. When Zeke was out for 6 games, Dak Prescott sucked. Period. I'll say it again. And I know I'm going to get pushback from this, but I don't care. Like I said, I actually watch the games, and I make my opinions from what I see. And when Dak Prescott does not have Ezekiel Elliott or a good receiver to throw to who is not named Amari Cooper or Jason Witten, Dak Prescott sucks. Ezekiel Elliott needs to learn to catch the ball out of the backfield better. That's one of the reasons I love folks like Barry Sanders and Walter Payton and Roger Craig and Thurman Thomas. They can catch the ball out of the backfield. So if they get Ezekiel Elliott to be more of a flair and actually throw him the ball and Zeke actually catches it and makes some big yards and have him do it early in the game, not when the game's already decided or when the game's on the line, then maybe, just maybe, I'll trust Dak Prescott. But as for now, nope. He does not deserve the money he is seeking. Slap a franchise tag on him and tell him to prove it. Because as far as the snowman is concerned, he hasn't proved a doggone thing. At least not yet. I'll leave that door open. I have been proven wrong before. Lord knows I have been proven wrong before. But that's why we love and miss sports so much. Once again, slap a franchise tag on him, make him prove himself this year, and if he does, then you pay him. That's Snowman's take. What's yours? Take a time out, but after the break, you'll hear an old episode of a Transition Tuesday that I had a chance to do with one Russ Williams. And we'll get that segment going again toward the end of the month. But you'll hear a classic version of it when you all get back in a deuce. Hey folks, Snowman here. Mark your calendars for April 20th. That's 2 weeks from now. because that's when I'm going to launch on my website the Snowman Digital Media Store. T-shirts, hats, mugs, all kinds of stuff with your favorite show logo or the Snowman Digital Media logo. That comes 2 weeks. April 20th is when the store will launch, and you can only see it on snowmandigitalmedia.com.
You're tuned in to the Daily BS. Sports and culture combined into one.
I never began an interview with such a declarative statement that I'm going to make right now. Don't ever tell me again that the Houston Rockets will compete for an NBA championship under this current regime. Sharif Ahmed now joins me on the other side of the hotline, and we're going to explain why. How are you, my friend?
Good. How are you?
Why do people insist on the Rockets being title contenders when they?
Well, let me tell you something. Oh, go ahead.
When they don't even have a full squad together, and I'm not talking about by personnel. I'm talking about by position.
Correct. Well, the thing about here in Houston are the fans are so fickle. They just, with the addition of with the addition of Russell Westbrook, he's anti-analytical. He's now carrying a price tag, millions and millions of dollars, and when this small ball was happening, it was just absolutely ridiculous. They were a 4 seed before the trade.
Yeah.
They were a 4 seed before the trade. Now they're about 2.5 games above the 7 seed. So right now they're sitting at a 6 seed with a 7 seed 2.5 games behind them. So there's a possibility if this season played out, they could have been a 7 seed while they were a title favorite. If we all remember that.
But I'm sorry to interrupt you, but where they got the small ball from. You know where they got the small ball from? The team that kept kicking their tail in the playoffs.
Oh, yes. Golden State Warriors. But here's the thing.
Go ahead.
But the thing is about the Golden State Warriors is that they had a rim protector.
Mm-hmm. Several.
Houston does not.
Several of them. Anybody remember Andrew Bogut? Anybody remember Andre Iguodala? Anybody remember JaVale McGee, Zaza Pachulia? So they had beef underneath. Hell, Draymond Green. He's a rim protector. People don't recognize it, but he is.
He is. You're absolutely correct.
And they expect, God help me for saying this, and I apologize because I know you're a Rocket fan. They expect Eric Gordon to be that rim protector. Why?
Well, I just want to just say I'm not a Rockets fan.
Okay.
I just live. I live in the greater Houston area, and that's all I hear is Rocket this, Astros this, Texans this. That's all I hear. So here's some numbers I want to throw at you really quick.
Please
the salary cap currently is at $109 million. Okay, and right now Russell Westbrook carries a $38 million price tag.
Yep.
James Harden carries a $37 million price tag. Eric Gordon carries a $14 million price tag. Covington carries a $12 million price tag. And Tucker is at about roughly $8 million. So if the salary cap's at 109, that right there, sir, constitutes almost that amount.
Yep.
Secondly, if you add up all the salaries from all the players that are currently on the roster, they're at $132 million over the cap. Therefore, they have to pay the luxury tax.
Yep.
Unless they do something drastic with their roster. Now, with the luxury tax, if they decide to keep this roster, they have to pay about 17-18% of the salary cap towards the luxury tax. Most of the time, teams will pay that if they're in title contention. You see what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
And the thing is that the Rockets are nowhere near title contention. They're nowhere near as good as the teams in the West. And it's going to be very difficult for them for the following year, because I think you've discussed this in the past about their regime.
Yep.
You have a lame duck coach. You have an analytical general manager who basically his roster is not an analytical roster.
Nowhere near.
And lastly, the owner is pounding on the desk, saying that he wants to win and he wants to win now. So, one last thing before we can continue with this. You want to know where the salaries for Westbrook and Harden will go for the next 3 seasons? Let me throw these numbers at you.
Please do.
2020, next year, 2020, Russell Westbrook's salary is going to be at $41 million per year for that year. James Harden is right behind him at $40 million. In 2021, both of those players that will already be pushing 34, 35 years old will both be commanding a $43 million price tag in 2021. And then in 2022, with the team option or player option, both of those guys are going to be making $46 million a pop. So for the next 2 seasons, the Rockets are strapped for between $80 to $83 million for 2 players. What does that tell you?
They're not going to win a doggone thing. They got the wrong players in that regime. Okay?
Yes.
I've been trying to tell people this on this program, that the Rockets cannot compete, I beg your pardon, playing small ball because they have the wrong personnel. They got the wrong personnel.
Yes, and you know as well as I do that when it's NBA playoffs, the refs are going to let them bang a little bit.
Oh yeah,
especially if there's a 7-game series. There's going to be a lot of banging. Mm-hmm. There's going to be a lot of dribble drives where guys are going to be sliding over for help. There's going to be that small bump. You know how it is.
Oh yeah,
they get that small bump coming in the lane. They're not going to call it like they would in the regular season.
Nope.
And the Rockets are not equipped for that.
They're not built for that kind of play. And
no.
They're not built mentally for the playoffs. And now, I know I've said such a blasphemous statement, but I don't care. Let's look at this factually, okay? And I'm going to use the team that everyone in Houston, in your area, keeps saying they have a chance to beat. I'm going to use the Golden State Warriors, who won 3 titles in a 5-year span, playing small ball but having the right personnel. In 2015, in the Western Conference Finals, the Warriors kicked their tails 4-1. And if you think about it, it shouldn't have been 4-1. It should have been 4-0, because the Warriors almost completed a miraculous comeback in Game 4 after Steph went out with a concussion. 1 year later. I remember that. Yeah, 1 year later, Steph is lost for the series against Houston. Didn't come back until mid-second round against the Portland Trail Blazers. And they still wiped out the Rockets in 5 games. 2018, the best chance the Rockets had to beat the Warriors, and I'm using the Warriors as a barometer here, folks. Stick with me. They had their best chance to beat the Warriors. Home court advantage, which means 7th game would be played in Texas. And you had the champions on the ropes. Had them down 3-2, going to Game 6 in Oakland. If the Rockets had any kind of machismo whatsoever, after holding an 11-point lead in enemy territory, which was once upon a time 17, they'd have wiped them out in Oakland and put the stigma to rest. But Klay Thompson got hot. They couldn't stop him. Stephen Curry got hot. They couldn't stop him. Kevin Durant, you already know the story. And by the way, JaVale McGee was a great rim protector who bullied Clint Capella for 2 games, 6 and 7.
Yes, but the one thing I can say about Capella was a baby when he was in that. I think he was maybe 19 or 20 years old.
Yeah.
And yeah, that shouldn't be an excuse. But yeah, you're right. They didn't have that. But the problem is this. Teams today I call this the LeBron factor. And let me tell you why. Everywhere LeBron has gone since
I love you for this because you're right in my head. You're right in my head. I love
because
this.
They're trying. The thing is that when LeBron left Cleveland the first time, he went to Miami.
Yep.
He put the team together called the Heatles. Remember that term, the Heatles?
Oh God.
And everyone is trying to mimic that motto.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is though is this: you got to find players that fits their roles.
Yeah.
Do you know who's who's Houston's number 5 right now? Tyson Chandler.
Yep, Tyson Chandler.
No disrespect to Tyson Chandler. He had a great career, but you and I can probably beat him in a full court foot race, man. There's no way that they can construct teams like that anymore because you got to bring a bunch of veteran players at a minimum rate, and you tell them this is your role. But you have two of the players that touch the ball the most in the entire league. Who's going to want to play with that? Who's going to want to play with that?
And we know where the third one is. We know where the third one is. He's in Los Angeles. And I don't mean Kawhi Leonard because Kawhi actually shares the ball. You know who I'm talking about.
The Lakers, of course. And another thing I want to throw in here, too, is that the Rockets really don't have any assets to trade.
Nope.
PJ Tucker just re-signed. He's making about between $7 to $8 million a year for the next 3 years. And then Eric Gordon just re-signed, I think last year or the year before, for $14 million a pop, and his contract is guaranteed for the next 2-3 seasons. So you're stuck. Who's going to want to take an Eric Gordon contract that he can't even play 45, 50 games healthy? You got PJ Tucker, who's 6'5" and his ass play center. Who's going to want that?
And you laugh at that situation because he's playing way out of position. He thinks he can bang with the best of them. And I never did get to 2019 because the Rockets erased a 2-0 deficit against Golden State, had them on the ropes again. They were minus Kevin Durant. They were minus DeMarcus Cousins. And I'll point to this play, which illustrates perfectly the mentality of the Houston Rockets. Late in the game, in Game 5 at Oracle Arena, there was a scramble for the ball deep in the corner. Klay Thompson went after it for a split second. But when Kevon Looney gained control, Klay Thompson did exactly what he was supposed to do. He dove to the bucket, and Looney found him, and all you saw were 3 Rockets in the corner wondering where the ball was while Klay Thompson had a wide-open layup.
Mm-hmm. You're absolutely right. I remember that. I do remember that. And another thing, too, man, and we touched on this before when we talked last time, D'Antoni can't win the big one.
Nope.
That Phoenix Suns, I think it was 2007 when the Spurs won that 2007 title. The Suns were the best team in the league.
Yeah, they were.
And the only time that they had a chance to beat them was when Robert Horry hit checked Steve Nash, and the Phoenix benches cleared, and Amari Stoudemire couldn't play. I forgot what other key starters did not play against the Spurs that series, and the only player that the Spurs lost was Robert Horry.
That's it.
And that was his best chance and only chance to win a title. And I tell these Rocket fans here, and I love them, the fact that they're very loyal to their team, and that's great for sports. But the reality of it is you have a de facto coach who can't win in the playoffs, and his system is not conducive to the NBA playoffs. NBA regular season, yes. NBA playoffs, it does not work. And they're still thinking that they have a chance to win. There's no way. That means if the Rockets are the 6th seed right now, they play. I looked at the standings earlier today. but I'm thinking the Clippers are a 3 seed.
Yeah.
So it can be Clippers Rockets, and you're going to think that the Rockets can beat the Clippers.
No.
That series right there would go 5 just due to the fact for TV, for the TV portion of it.
And that's all.
It'll go, and that's it. And then what happens then? It's mind-boggling.
It's a wipeout. Once again, it's a wipeout. And you said it best. A de facto coach, and of course we're talking about Mike D'Antoni, a de facto coach who should not have been hired in the first place. Kevin McHale should have been given a chance in 2016 to right the ship in Houston. They panicked. They fired McHale. They brought in D'Antoni, and it's been a sinking ship.
It has been. You're absolutely right. And I just want to just say here in Houston, Houston sports, I don't want to go a little off base of topic, but we're talking about Houston. But the professional franchises here in Houston are all in shambles. You got the Rockets that are in shambles.
Yep.
You got the Houston Astros with their scandal,
mm-hmm.
and now you have the Houston Texans, who right now are going to be a division contending team to a sub 500 team within 2 trades.
Yep.
So and then the Roughnecks were 5-0, but the XFL league couldn't finish.
Yeah.
But there's I don't know what it is. Is it mismanagement? Is it? I don't know.
I absolutely think it's mismanagement. Save the Roughnecks. It's got to be mismanagement. We don't have to explain the Texans. All we got to say is Bill O'Brien. That's all we have to say.
Yeah.
All we have to say is Bill O'Brien. As far as the Rockets go, Daryl Morey. Do I need to say anything else?
No. I want to ask you a question. I want to ask you a old school basketball question, if you don't mind.
Go for it.
I posted this on my page into my social media. I try to make this debate, and it seems very one-sided, but I don't think it's one-sided. Do you think, in your basketball opinion, if Dream Team 2 can beat Dream Team 1?
You're teasing me, right?
I'm being dead serious.
You're being dead serious. I saw your reasoning of why you think Dream Team 2 can take down Dream Team 1. I saw your one-word reason. And to a point, I agree. Here's the problem. A new school center like Shaq at the time would have been beaten to death by an old school center we like to call Patrick Ewing. The athleticism with Dream Team 2 is there. Don't get me wrong. The athleticism of Dream Team 2 is there. But there was a basketball mind with the original Dream Team by the name of Chuck Daly, who would have devised a game plan to take down Dream Team 2. Now, would it have been a close game? You bet.
Let me just throw the lineup for you for Dream Team 2. Tim Hardaway, Joe Dumars, Reggie Miller, Hakeem Olajuwon, Shaq, Sean Kemp, Larry Johnson, Isaiah Thomas, and I'm trying to see the picture because the pictures are just so vague. Steve Smith, Dan Marley, Derek Coleman.
Mm-hmm.
No, it wasn't. I'm sorry. Not Hakeem Olajuwon. Dominique Wilkins, Mark Price.
Yeah. Well, I love some Mark Price because Mark Price was Steph Curry before Steph Curry was born. But
all right, let's have some fun here.
Go for it.
Let's do matchups.
Let's do it.
Matchups. We'll start in the 5. David Robinson started as the 5.
Yeah.
Okay, then we put Shaq. We put Shaq in there. Shaq versus Robinson. Who wins that matchup?
That's even. That is too even to call. You would give a slight advantage. You'd give a slight advantage to Robinson because Robinson had something Shaq was developing, and that was a little baseline jump shot. but it's too even.
Oh,
it's way too
yes,
even.
Yes, and you're absolutely correct. I forgot to add one more post player to the team that completes the team. It's Alonzo Mourning. Okay. You call that even. All right, we'll do the 4. Who played the 4 in Dream Team 1? Charles Barkley.
Mm-hmm.
Charles Barkley. You want to say Charles Barkley, Sean Kemp.
Oh, man. Athleticism would go the way of Sean Kemp. Rebounding and defense would go the way of Barkley. So you can cancel that out.
So that's even.
Yeah.
Okay. Small forward. I think I'm not gonna even debate this, but I'm still gonna throw the matchup on there. I'll still throw up the matchup on there. Michael Jordan, Steve Smith. We'll give that to Michael Jordan. We're not even gonna sit here and argue that and debate that. Now, the interesting one is the number 2. Reggie Miller was their number 2. Who would go up against Reggie Miller?
Scotty, no, that's wrong. That's wrong. I was going one. You know what? I am going to go that way because Scotty played on 2 dream teams. Scottie Pippen. There's your answer. Long, lean, athletic, can hit a jump shot also. So Pippen could shut down Reggie Miller. Advantage Scottie Pippen.
Okay, we have 3 guards here. We can choose which one will start at the 1. Either Isaiah, Tim Hardaway, or Joe Dumars against John Stockton. Let's just say Joe Dumars gets the starting nod. Joe Dumars against John Stockton.
See, that's when you pull a fast one if you're Chuck Daly, because Daly knows Dumars, all right? You got to base this on knowledge. Daly knows Dumars, so you know what Daly would do? He would take a 6'6" bald guy named Michael Jordan and said, stick him. Let's leave Stockton a little room to roam. But then you mentioned 3 starting point guards. It wasn't a mistake with Dream Team 2 to have 3 starting point guards at all. No, not saying that at all. But you have to look at it, since we're talking old school, you got to look at it the way Dream Team 1 was constructed versus the way Dream Team 2 was constructed, because Dream Team 2 was only there for 94, the World Basketball Championships that were played in Canada.
Yes.
You know who I would, if you'll allow me a wild card, since we're talking about a point guard, you got you had Joe Dumars, Isaiah Thomas, and Mark Price. I'll slip a wild card in this conversation. And my wild card would be Kevin Johnson.
Really?
Yeah. Remember,
I like
KJ,
your way of thinking.
Remember, KJ didn't get a chance to play until after 96, and he was on the downside of his career. But KJ's career blossomed in Phoenix.
It did.
I would allow Kevin Johnson, if you want to go speed for speed, because Mark Price is one of the fastest guards in the game. Isaiah Thomas was one of the fastest guards in the game. That's why I loved watching him. But if you'll allow me a wild card, I throw Kevin Johnson at him.
Yeah, but here's the one thing. But this is my argument, though. This is one of the. I'm the only one, I think, in my post that actually think the 94 can beat him, and here's why.
Okay.
Larry Bird retired.
True.
After the Olympics, did he not?
True.
I don't even think I think he was averaging maybe between 10 to 11 minutes a game, if that.
Yeah, because his debilitating back injury really got the best of him.
Right. Then you had Magic Johnson, who was out of basketball, out of the league for the year after he, had the announcement. He played the All-Star game, and that was pretty much the only game action he had.
True.
See what I'm saying? You had Chris Mullin.
Mm-hmm.
You had Clyde Drexler. You had Clyde Drexler. If you want to throw that on there. But the thing about the 94 team was you had Alonzo Mourning, you had Shaq, you had Larry Johnson, and then
you
the
basically
international
had
game,
the 90s era on that 94 Dream Team. The original Dream Team, and I'll allow you this, and I see where you're going. The original Dream Team, if you really want to think about it, was the closing of an era. that we had the pleasure of watching, save Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen and David Robinson. The original Dream Team, I believe, began the closing of an era.
I agree. I agree with you on that one. But it would have been one hell of a game to see, though, because
yeah,
Shaq has been going all, Shaq has mentioned it a few times that he feels that group could have beaten the first group.
Yeah.
And I do agree with him. And another tidbit I want to throw in there.
Yeah.
You had 3 on the 94 team. You had 3 players on that team were in the top 5 in three-point percentage, 3-point attempts, and 3-point makes.
And it was around that time where the game began to be extended out to the 3-point line. It was around that time. It wasn't as rangy, that's the best word I can come up with, as it is now. But by 94, 95, it was being extended out to the 3-point line.
And remember, and again, we talked old school this a while back. Back in I think the 3-point line was introduced in 79, 80. I don't remember.
Yes, sir.
But it was taboo to shoot a 3-pointer.
Yeah.
It was taboo. Coaches would take players out if they shot 2 or 3.5. They'd be like, "What are you doing?" But let me just throw these three.
Except Casey Jones or Bill Fitch with the Celtics, except Pat Riley with the Lakers, who saw how to use the weapon.
Yeah. Let me just throw 3 players at you from the 94 team that were in those top categories. You had Mark Price, Reggie Miller, Dan Marley, Thunder Dan. And you also have to remember the 3-point line is almost 23, 24 feet, to whereas the international line is 20 feet.
20 feet, yes.
So now you're bringing in, you're shortening the gap by 3 feet.
Yeah, and it's a chance to get up some more 3-point shots.
Yes. So that was my argument there.
Yeah.
They can spread the floor out, which now forces Shaq. I mean, can you imagine?
Yeah.
For let's just say for 2-3 minute spurts, you put Shaq and Zoe in the blocks.
And they've had their battles. They've had their battles, folks. You know what the final score would be? I'm gonna have to. We're coming up against a break here, but you know what the final score would have been? And I wouldn't care which Dream Team won. It would be something like 225 to 200 or 225. It would be, both teams would have 200 points. Both teams would have 200 points.
I would love to see the spread of that game. Can you imagine the spread and the over and under on that game? That would be one hell of a game.
You know what the over and under would be? I'll tell you right now, and I've done some handicapping back in the past. You know what the over and under would be? 520.
Probably, and they'd probably flirt with it too.
They would indeed flirt with it. You know it, I know it. With those two dream teams, the 2 original dream teams, folks, 92 and 94. Tell me that wouldn't be a 500-point game. Tell me that wouldn't be 500 points before overtime.
Minimum.
And you still allow Bird his 11 minutes. You allow Magic Johnson to get his feet under him. Are you kidding me? That would be a 500-point game easy.
It would be a great game to watch. But that's an argument. That's an argument that you can go back and forth with because everyone was so overwhelmed by the 92 team. But you can even say 94 and 96 could have gotten them. But that game will never happen.
But those are dream teams. That's why they call it dream teams. It would be fun either way.
Yeah.
It would be fun. It would be, and you know what? Let's stop with the original Dream Team 2, 94, and then Dream Team 3 of 96, okay? And the reason I'm stopping there is very simple. No LeBron involved. I'm sorry. Bring Kobe into the equation, I'll allow that. Tim Duncan, I'll allow that. The Splash Brothers, I'll allow them. I will not allow LeBron on the Dream Team. I just wouldn't. I'm sorry. People are going to hate me for that statement. I don't care.
Not me.
Because you get it. Because you completely understand. You completely understand why I throw a statement out there, and I'm getting yelled at right now, but I want to bring this in because my beautiful engineer's yelling at me. Because if I say a statement, and you've seen it happen, if I say anything blasphemous against LeBron, do you know how much pushback I get every time I make a statement like that?
Oh my goodness! I mean, I'm just thinking about making a T-shirt with Hulk Hogan colors say "LeBron-a-Maniacs." I mean, it's just so bad. I'm
actually told we're okay. Let's keep going. Let's go. And let's listen. I've always said on this program, and you heard me say it, LeBron is a fantastic athlete. There is a difference between being an athlete and being a basketball player. Here's the difference. Stephen Curry is a basketball player. Kawhi Leonard is a basketball player. Klay Thompson is a basketball player. LeBron James, Russell Westbrook, James Harden ain't basketball players.
No. And I agree with you on that. And you also have to also say that Steph Curry revolutionized the game.
Absolutely.
Because if you think of Steph Curry eliminated the 5 spot. He eliminated post play.
He did.
Yes. I'm not a Steph fan, but I respect Steph's game. But when you break it down to basketball, he single-handedly eliminated a position. How many true 5s do we see in the league right now?
We don't. And I ain't counting Dwight Howard in that equation because I haven't liked Dwight Howard anyway.
Yeah,
since he left
Djokovic,
Orlando. Nikola Jokic is bringing that position back. He's a true back to the basket kind of center.
But the thing is that there's 2 elements to his game that makes him unique. He can hit a mid-range jumper off a pick and pop.
Yep.
Or if there's a fast break, he can literally be the last guy trailing a play.
Mm-hmm.
Jamal Murray can dribble penetrate and then kick out to the top of the key, and Jokic will just spot up and will hit a 3 in your grill.
And he's very accurate. He's very accurate. Listen, I hate to upset these bronzexuals, as my friend Cole Johnson would say, or these bronzomaniacs, and we're definitely going to have to close here. I hate to upset these bronzomaniacs, but he's an incomplete player. If he learned how to dribble without traveling 3/4 of the time, he'd be dangerous. If he actually developed a post game like, Michael Jordan did, like, Larry Bird did, like, you know this name, Sean Elliott.
Pride of Arizona.
Sharif Ahmed joining me to talk some NBA. Glad to have you aboard, my friend.
Thank you for having me, and I love talking hoops with you, man.
That'll do it for this edition of the Daily BS. I want to thank you all for listening. Thank you to my wonderful guests, and I want to thank you, the wonderful fans that have tuned in the region, across the nation, and around the world. Want to sponsor this here program? Drop an email to snowmandigitalmedia@gmail.com. That's snowmandigitalmedia@gmail.com. And also, you can find us on snowmandigitalmedia.com for a great replay of this show. And don't forget, the podcast version thereof is available immediately after I get the heck out of here, which I'm about to do right now. Have a great afternoon. God bless. Remember to make your next move your best move. And always remember, if your dreams don't scare you, then they are not big enough. Dream big, do bigger. I am, and I hope you all are too. Until tomorrow, when I'm back at you again with another edition of the Daily BS, I'm signing off until 22 hours from now. So long, everybody.